during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
There we go. How about that one? It better be number one.
Thanks for having me.
There we are. Fantastic. Nice to see you here. Let me get rid of that thing and pick up some tones over here. Russell is here, of course. Thanks for coming by and having a relaxing Tuesday afternoon. What do you think is going on right now with the politics? Where's your head at with this? We've got to... I'll set the stage for the listeners. We have Marijane is also a podcaster. She's on... where do we find you, first of all? 420, right?
420radio.ca.
420radio.ca. And your show is how often?
Our show is Friday nights from 7 to 9. It's a 2-hour show.
2-hour show, Friday nights. I've been on there a couple of weeks ago. I guess it was the week after 420, I think I was on there. But, so we are in Ontario, we're in Toronto. We're going to have looks like a new government, one way or the other. The leader of the current government, who's blaming us now for deciding to choose one or two of the other governments because she led us to a place where there was no alternative, is stepping down or something. She will lose the election. She's already said this, her own self. I've screwed it up so badly, but if they get it, they'll really screw it up. It's one of my favorite campaign slogans. But what do you think's going to happen? Where's your head at with all of this?
With the election
Yeah.
or the legalization?
Well, both. They kind of factor into each other because with Kathleen's program, the way it is, if she wins, boom, that's the way it is. But if somebody else gets in, there will be changes. And
It's scary to think what's going to happen either way, right? Because legalization, the way Wynne has it, is not legalization. And if anybody else gets in and decides to change the program, then it's still not going to be legalization as we know it today, right? So.
what do you call legalization? This is the hot button topic. I mean, there's legalization, there's recriminalization, there's decriminalization, and there's everybody has a different take on it. So when you hear legalization, I mean, people get happy about this.
They do. I have a lot of friends that tell me, you should be excited because legalization is coming, and they don't quite understand that once legalization happens, you still will not be able to consume cannabis, whether, you want to smoke a joint or, have a cookie anywhere outside your own private residence, which is scary because, the first thing people are going to do is light up a joint on the way to their friend's house and think it's okay. And, if a police officer sees you, they still will harass you.
Yeah. It's amazing when we don't really want that.
No.
And we talk about living in this, this election's coming up, and it's not a mistake to me that when you say that, it sounds like the selection, because it doesn't really matter who's gonna win. They have already gone to the police. They didn't go to people like me. They didn't go, well, we should talk to some people that might have been using this stuff and have turned their health around, because maybe we don't have all the answers. Because if you don't have any official data, because it's been illegal and you can't research it, of course they're not going to get that data at the hospital.
Yeah.
They pretend it's not there.
Well, they said that they were touring across country and that they were going to be meeting with people of stature within the community, but yet nobody knew where these meetings were happening. Like, people like me or you didn't know where these meetings were happening until the day after.
Yeah.
That's when they were publicized. That's when I found out I could go to, I can't even remember. I think it was Ottawa.
Right.
Was the closest one to me. And I was like, what the heck? The date on the news article was actually after the date of the event.
Yeah. Well, what they did was, I found out on they said they were going to do the tour, which was, fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider myself a little more plugged into those kinds of news events coming up than, say, the average person, just because of, where I'm at, what's happening to me. And I found out about the Scarborough one, which took place about 6 clicks down the road from my place, the day after. And I couldn't believe it. And and then I found out that they had listed this tour on the justice.gov website. And all it said was that they were embarking on the tour, but they had none of the cities, times, dates, places on there. So the media were going, the local media were attending. You know, the Lethbridge Gleaner or whatever would show up at the various whistle stops, and then they would talk to them, and then there would be both on-duty and off-duty police officers there.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then tomorrow we're going to be somewhere else. Like, what is that?
I don't know.
We need to call them into account. It's ridiculous. First you have a cop set it up, and then they secret their ass around the country and say, well, it's gonna be what we want to do. Okay, see you, bye. And then it's in the paper the next day. Like, I mean, it's so not on board. I'm just not going to sit back for 80 years like we did last time.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but, you know,
It's definitely interesting. June 7th is going to be a very interesting day.
June 7th is, of course, Thursday. We have an election coming up, and
2 days.
2 days from now, yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. What do you think about when you think about decriminalization? What would that mean to you?
Okay, I like Tommy Chong's model of, we'll call it legalization, would be just stop arresting people.
Oh, that's
basically,
a good point.
you know,
Sure.
like just let us use the plant that we've been using for so many years and just leave us alone. Stop spending tax dollars,
Right.
putting people behind bars, you know, crowding the court system.
Yeah.
For what?
Well, I think they don't really teach, unless you go to law school, they don't really teach these phrases, because a lot of people that are saying, yay, it's going to be legalized, are thinking that.
Yes.
And they're believing that it's going to be, oh, it's not a problem, it's legal. What legalized means is if you've ever read a contract, that there's that much kind of legalese wrapped around being able to light up or do an oil or an edible or something. And even when this stuff, you know, however they usher it in, then you've got this other waiting period on the liquids.
Oh, yeah.
And
Let's
the
talk
edibles.
about capped THC limits, too.
Okay, let's talk about it. I don't know much about it. Go for that.
So apparently, you're a fan of concentrates, as am I, because sometimes you need higher THC.
Right.
But licensed producers and stores like the Ontario Cannabis Store will only be allowed to sell a certain amount of THC levels. So stuff like shatter and rosin and resin, that sort of thing, like the thicker oils,
Right.
you won't be able to get from the Ontario Cannabis Store because they won't be allowed to sell it.
Oh, by the way, we're boycotting the Ontario
Yes.
Cannabis Store on the show and forever, and don't go there. I am going to go in and take a look at it. I think everybody should go in and take a look at it, see what it's like, compare it to your memories of
You're
the
not going to be
Soviet.
able to see it.
I'm not going to be able to.
No,
Why
I
not?
think, do you remember back in the old days, see, I've only heard of this, but back in the day,
Okay.
you used to be able to go to the liquor store and you had to physically write
Yeah.
down what you wanted.
That's right. Slip it under the counter.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So apparently they're saying you're not going to be able to see the cannabis. You're going to have a big list.
Yeah. Well, that's
And
what I mean.
prices.
That's what I mean. Though. I
And-
want to go in and see how gulag it really is, just to see how far they're going. Like,
Well, you'll see me outside. I'll be there with my picket sign.
you will be. Okay.
Yes. Well, there's only going to be one within so much radius, so I can guarantee
That's
you
not a
it'll be the
problem, is
same
it?
one.
That's not a problem for the regular user, is it? Just because there are going to be fewer dispensaries across this giant province than there are currently in Hamilton, just because of that, that's not going to be an issue, is it?
Well, personally, for myself, no, because I have my license to grow, but I do know some of my friends
Yeah.
who, in order to get to the closest store, they're going to have to drive to Kingston, which is on the way to Kingston. You're going to pass about 30 to 35 cannabis dispensaries on the Tyendinaga territory.
Is that right?
Yeah, so
35 dispensaries.
I think that's what we're up to now. There's more every day that just keep popping up.
Wow.
So I don't see why anybody would drive a half an hour further to get medication that's going to be more expensive and that they're not going to be able to smell,
Yeah.
see,
I think it's going to be absolutely miserable on so many levels that people don't even realize yet. And I could be a pessimist in me because I do have that going on. But when you look at, for example, in so few, if you're looking at Johnny Play It Straight, right? Like let's take that guy. He now needs to drive, let's say 90 minutes maybe to get to his You know, because he lives in somewhere in Ontario. Where
I could see him doing that. I could see people do that.
So Johnny's going to, you know, oh, yeah, I'm going to swing on down to wherever it is. And he's going to put the time in. And he's going to do this. Now, once he gets to the dispensary, if he's doing that, to me, then he's doing it enough that he has it in his blood at some level. And don't you think cops are going to start to kind of stake out areas where dispensaries are and start tagging and looking at drivers that are always going to test positive for cannabis, but the matter of whether or not they're high or impaired is another issue.
Oh, yes. Driving while under the influence.
Right. That's what you say.
Huge topic.
That's what they say. It's going to be huge. So you're legally going to have to drive to go to some place so you can get stuff to bring it back to your place. So there are people who Johnny Play It by the Book is going to have to do like 3 hours of driving every time he's going to pick up another load, you know, another dose, or if he's recreational or medicinal, whichever it is. It's still going to be in his blood. He's going to put in 3 hours. He's going to maybe do 6 hours a week driving, which is going to expose him further to the potential of arrest just by mathematically.
Well,
Just by being out there that
I'm
much.
pretty sure. I think the limits that they're talking about is in like measured in nanogram size.
Yeah, I don't have that idea in my head.
I think
how
it
tiny
was
that
like
is.
3 to 5 nanograms. Now, to give you a little idea,
It's two.
Somebody,
it's 2 nanograms.
okay, so somebody that I follow on YouTube said, you know, I 2 nanograms.
Is that what it is?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, somebody like you or I that consume cannabis every day, I could not consume cannabis for like 2 weeks
and still
test positive.
Yeah, which means you're impaired, which means you're going to jail.
I can't even ride a bicycle under the law of
Really?
driving under the influence of cannabis, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now. We won't be able to. Now, do we have current testing at this point to find out if the driver is impaired on Xanax, or is impaired on Zoloft, or is impaired on a combination of other pharmaceutical meds? Do we have any kind of test like that, or is it just alcohol right now?
Right. Okay. So, from my understanding, the police are supposed to be trained in driving under the influence of any kind,
right,
whether it be pharmaceutical drugs or, you know, illegal drugs or alcohol or, you know, basic lack of sleep sometimes.
Sure.
You know, I've been in a fight
exhaustion
with my ex-boyfriend, and I tell you, I was a danger on the road. I knew enough to pull off.
Right.
You know, so the problem with that sort of system is it's at the police discretion, right? So it's their judgment.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, if you catch somebody on a bad day, their judgment can be skewed.
Yeah, we've seen some instances here and there of police discretion going awry. I don't think you have to be all that well read.
No.
To understand that, well, these guys are getting new hopped up powers, and what this really comes down to is a lot of different things of control, but it comes down to understanding that we really have to stop pretending that we're all living in a democracy. I think we have to stop that notion. It's nice to believe in it, but it would be better if it were really the case, you know. And so I'm tired of this because we don't really live in a democracy when they're going to free something up and say that's what they're doing and immediately go to the cops to figure out how are they going to not lose man hours. That's what this comes down to. Because if you really eliminated, the as you say, just to stop arresting people.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as a cop stops arresting someone and then he doesn't have the paperwork to do and then he doesn't have court duty to attend, etc. So if you subtract those man hours out of every single officer's, across the entire, everywhere, like North American police force or around the world, all of a sudden, I think the numbers are going to show you need far fewer cops. And every election goes, we're going to hire more police. So there's this other mindset where we need as many as we have or more. But the reality of it would be that you're coming from a different place where you need fewer of them because you're not doing some things.
Well, you see, I wish that they would just revamp what the police structure actually was, because, like, I know it used to be a lot more about community.
Sure.
And maybe if we directed some of their efforts in building up the community, not so much arresting bad people and putting people in jail,
Yeah.
then maybe we could still utilize them and still pay them at the same time.
Well, we had an officer on here a couple of weeks ago, and he made the very strong point that over the years it's gone that cops don't even live in the region that they're policing.
Wow.
And so they'll come in. There'll be guys coming. Guys live in Vaughan,
Yeah.
right, in a northwest section of Toronto. They'll come down and police down in Regent Park down here, or
Yep.
everybody's in a different. But you should be from that area.
Yeah, it
That's what
definitely would
that's
help.
what he's saying, and he's an experienced police officer. I kind of thought so for a while, but he was like, no, it's a great idea, and it doesn't happen. So and then there's the over militarization of them, and the hardware and everything. But now we're at this place where we have to defer to them all the time, and so there's a lot of I don't know how are you guys over there at 420 when you talk to folks about it? I mean, we're talking about a political consciousness here. This isn't just straight rights issue, because they're obviously not they're not recognizing the rights, and we have to figure out a way to make them recognize it. That's the thing, because this thing's not here yet, and just because it comes in, like I said at the beginning of the show, you have to fight against an unjust law. If you know that it's unjust. Henry David Thoreau or Jefferson said that, one of those guys. I'm not exactly sure who it was, but in any case, it's true. It's a true point. So I don't know how we're going to get around this, but some kind of unification. Now, we do have a bit of a rift in the community here and there. That's the problem too, right? Like, aside from the police and everyone else, what goes through your mind when you think of things like that?
You took the thoughts right out of my head. I was just thinking how a lot of advocates and activists have kind of thought, legalization is coming, and maybe it's just getting too tough or too messy, or maybe they're just getting tired. I'm not too sure, because I'm just getting into the whole advocate scene. But I think now's the time that we should band together and support each other and start pushing it we've been pushing for years to get the government to change the laws, and now they're starting to change them. Let's make sure that they're smart laws,
Right,
that
to our
people
favor, or
Yeah.
we wasted our time trying to get them to change them in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's one thing we have to do, but I don't think we can have a leader. I don't think we can do that, because this is always what corrupts. There's a problem, and then so many people don't agree. There just has to be this I think we can all agree, regardless of who we're doing business with or not, that we just, like you say, we just want to be left alone to be able to medicate.
Yeah.
If I were arrested every time I got caught doing what I was doing, I wouldn't have been able to live.
Well, see,
It gets down to that. It gets down to that level.
Well, here's the issue that I have. It's my body. I went to the doctors. They gave me all sorts of pills. I took their pills. It almost killed me.
Right.
I found cannabis, and it's the only thing that seems to help. So I don't understand why the government is trying to control that.
Because of the children. You're not listening.
It's because of the money.
Oh, right, because of the
yes,
money. Oh,
yes.
sorry.
I'm tired of them using my child as a scapegoat for
me
that.
too. Me too. And it's not even a really good excuse,
No.
because the answer is you teach them. That's three. That's the
Absolutely.
3-word answer is you teach them. That's what about them.
It's almost like that lady in The Simpsons who
Yeah.
screams every episode, but think of the children.
Right, that's it. I mean, you have to tell the kid, one of the first things you really got to nail into a kid and just burn it into his brain is this thing called the road, and to look both ways before you cross it. And even if it's a one-way street, you still,
Yeah.
and if you didn't do that, people could still be running around going, but what about the roads and the children? I mean, we can't have roads if we're going to have kids. Yeah, you teach them not to run across. Like, it's a very dangerous thing if you just ignore the physics and the use of the road, and you ignore this to go across it. That is a huge problem for kids.
Oh, yeah.
It always has been, and it's even more so since 1910 or whenever they started driving around in cars, right? But they had to teach them this.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing. You just have to go like, this is what this stuff is, and daddy uses it for this reason, and you get them. I know lots of people that have taught their children. So don't believe the what about the children trope, and don't be influenced by anybody who does.
Well, especially considering those are the people that have alcohol in their cabinets that are not locked,
Right.
you know, and prescription pills in their bathroom cupboard where their child can lock the door and have full access to whatever's in there.
Yeah. Can you imagine saying that about weed? You just say, well, you just put it in a child-proof cap like pharmaceuticals. I mean, what's the big deal?
Well,
well, that's not good enough.
No, legally it has to be under lock and key from your children, and it's
Pharma
crazy.
doesn't have that, and then they're taxing it too. But before we get into the taxes of a medicine, and then other medicines don't have tax, let's break down your. I always like to find out the way the people got here. So in the first place, you had some kind of problem, medical issue, and so tell us about that and what they told you and you know how you dealt with it.
Okay, so I figured out when I was a teenager that I suffered from irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh gosh. You
IBS,
figured it out? That couldn't have
short.
been hard to figure out.
Well,
I mean.
it was actually quite difficult because
Really?
apparently the test for irritable bowel syndrome is every other possible test to come back negative.
Oh.
Yeah, they test you for Crohn's, they test you for colitis, they make you go through basically every sort of test that you can.
Right.
And when that all came back negative, they told me that I had IBS and that I was dairy intolerant, amongst many other things. And after many years of, like I said, trying to use pharmaceuticals to help ease the pain, both for that as well as anxiety and depression and sleep disorders, I found cannabis. And once finding cannabis, my life changed completely. I went from being what my boyfriend now calls a zombie because
You were a zombie.
I
according to him.
I couldn't climb out of bed in the morning. My kids never made it to school on time. I couldn't drag myself off the couch. There was no energy. They had me on Ativan and Trazodone and Cipralex.
And you had a symphony of side effects with these things?
Absolutely, but don't worry because we have a pill to fix that side
Yeah,
effect for
sure.
you, right?
Yeah.
So
Then you caught in a spider web at that point.
I did. I ended up spending, I think it was 8 hours on the bathroom floor, not being able to physically see the toilet with my eyes open.
Wow.
It was very terrifying for my boyfriend, let's just say. And since that day, I have not used any pharmaceuticals. I might take the odd Advil, and that's if I absolutely have to take something.
Right.
But I use cannabis oil and just dried flower and concentrates.
And you had those
vaping.
3 drugs going at the same time?
At the same time. Well, like you have a schedule, but yeah,
Sure.
it's like a toxic cocktail.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing I hate about it too is you have to people get concerned about, okay, when should I take the cannabis? It's like if you you take this pill, you have to take this pill on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
And you have to take this pill with food, but not dairy. And this one you have to take before you go to sleep. And this one you have to take with no liquids.
I had
you got
like
all this
4
shit
alarms.
going on, right?
I had 4 or 5 alarms on my phone that would go off every day, and it would tell me what pills I had to take at that time.
God. Yeah.
It went from being like 9 different pills a day to being none.
And did you ever ask your doctor, have they done tests where 2 or 3 of these things are going on at the same time? I mean, you can have side effects from one drug and side effects from another, but if you put them together, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get any of them or all of them, and sometimes different ones because you put 2 together. Has anything been tested like this? And the answer is always no.
Well, see, here's the thing they tell you. Well, we're not too sure about that. You need to go and see your pharmacy for that.
Right.
And make sure you go to the same pharmacist that you get all your pills so that way they can ensure that you're getting it all correctly and you don't have an interaction like what you're describing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say you discovered cannabis, what does that mean? Someone put a joint in your hand, or you looked at a medical cannabis book? Or
I always used cannabis as a recreational tool growing up. And I had somebody convince me that I was addicted because it was a drug. And I had stopped using it. And like I said, I had to turn to pharmaceuticals to help with some of the issues that I was experiencing. And it just didn't work. Like I said, I almost died.
Yeah.
And I vowed that night that I would never do that again. It was the worst. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I had asked my doctor, I'm found cannabis, I'd like to use it, and he had said, yes, but MJ, that's not covered because I'm on disability. And they're like, well, that's not covered, whereas your Ativan is.
Sure, all that stuff is covered, yeah.
Right.
That's the other thing we're going to have to push forward. this now brings it, you know, they do all these comparisons. When I say they, the implementers, the freaks at the top, they do these comparisons and then they don't follow through.
Yes.
Like, for example, they compare it to being as perilous as tobacco, even though it isn't. And but then they won't let you have the rules that tobacco has. Like, for example, you have to smoke 9 meters away from a doorway. Well, you can't smoke a joint anywhere. Or you could be walking down the street on your way to catch a streetcar or a bus or something, and you could smoke a cigarette. But if you do a joint, then that's a problem, right? Like, I thought it was like tobacco. Well, not in that way. I mean, they've just sort of shaped it into this. They've perceived it into the worst sort of, you know, aspects of each of these things. They compare it to alcohol. They say, oh, we're going to have to sell it at the alcohol store because, you know, and you go, well, I'd like to get some of that kind of Captain Morgan weed with the kind of funny, oh, no, we don't have any kind of funny cartoon characters or any kind of endorsements or any kind of celebrity whatever, so we can't have any of that stuff, right? You can't have a guy doing a sexy whiskey commercial type of thing with a joint. Like, they go, well, it's different, you know, like this. They can't seem to get a cohesive thought pattern on what it is. It's like the other bad thing for a ways, but as soon as it breaks into a freedom, then we don't do that with weed. And they just keep doing it all over the place. This has to be stopped.
I totally agree.
We have to say, fuck off. We get to look at this in any way we want.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not something that that people that are reasonable understand that if, as long as it doesn't go like this, we don't really have this democracy, and we have to basically create it. We have to make this shit. You know,
well, I think too many people just don't listen to shows like this, and they spend more time watching the news at 6 o'clock for their 20 minutes or half an hour, and they get what mainstream media is putting into their ears, right? And that is that legalization is going to be passed through the Senate June 7th.
Problem solved.
You know, legalization is coming soon. Yay, we should all celebrate. So
yeah, that's the problem, is that they didn't bring us to the table. They didn't bring me to the table. I would have thought they might have brought me to the table, not from any other sense than of my background, which is a relatively famous guy in this country. I worked on a show, and I know a lot of people in the journalists and the like that said, look, we can't have you on because you can't say these things, you know. And all I'm saying is, I claim I got stage 4 cancer, and I claim I used cannabis to help me out of it. Why can't I say that? I was speaking at Lyft on the weekend, a couple of weekends ago, right?
Last weekend.
Yep. And I was invited to speak at a booth that is cannabis themed, as you can imagine, at Lyft. And it was at the cannabis themed Lyft show. And I started talking about Bill Blair, and they cut my mic. Like, well, I was 2 minutes into a 20-minute agreed upon thing. Like I get a lot of people don't want to hear this, and they don't believe it. And maybe if there are wives or husbands of police officers now, they're angry about listening to my opinions on the matter. But when you're a weed store at a weed expo and you had the chance to see the kinds of things I talk about, I don't understand bringing me on and fading the mics out. I mean, that was, where else am I supposed to say these things? They'll get the mainstream freezing me out. But this is what I think we get down to. How long have you been using cannabis again?
I started using cannabis when I was 15 years old.
Okay.
And that was just recreationally.
Okay.
Yeah. But medicinally, it's been now since 2011.
Okay, so a good 7 years medicinally. So have you noticed that when you're using it, when the cumulative effect of using it is that it does bring in other perceptions of circumstance, all kinds of different things. And that is, I think, what the biggest deal is about why they don't want it to be legalized. I mean, legalized, I should say. Why they want to control it to the point of legalization.
Yeah.
I really feel like if enough of us understood the ways and means that they're, squeezing us out, and you get those realizations from using cannabis, they wouldn't know what to do. I mean, that's why they're blocking it out, I think.
Yep. I always like the phrase, why can't we all just get get along?
That's it. I know that one. Yeah, that's a good one. But so when you guys are doing, when you're doing shows, like what kind of things do you spend time talking about? Because there are a lot of different cannabis themed shows on. Mine was specifically not getting wasted and just more talking about the rights and the science of it. But what kinds of things do you do on 420?
Well, we talk about everything, really. We talk about how to make your own edibles. We talk about how to grow, how to make tinctures. We talk to some companies that are up and newcomers that want to talk about, how they got into the business.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's always a good time.
And you're finding that, like, people, I found on my show that people who are figuring things out are people that were felled with a problem, and then they turn it around. Like, we had Jane Drow on. Do you know her? Did you ever speak with Jane?
No.
Yeah, she had this incredible illness, and she was able to turn it around, build her show up. She had a lot of viewers. We had her on a while ago, and now they've wiped out her show.
Yes.
So this is YouTube, this platform here. Like you say, that more people need to listen to shows like this, and all of the shows anywhere near like this are getting erased.
I did
wiped out.
hear about that. I think the answer to that was they opened up a weed tube. I don't know.
Who did? YouTube?
No, probably not YouTube, but I think someone else just got fed up of YouTube taking down all the cannabis related links or channels, I guess, because they say if you look like you're promoting the use of cannabis or sale of cannabis in any way, whether it be to minors or people of legal age, that your page will be taken down.
And what other product has that going on? Nothing?
Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting because the better we do at this show, the closer we get to cancellation and disappearance. So we are. It's a good time to do a little plug on that front, actually, folks. I just want to make a little official announcement. All right, so here we go. Yes. Why can't we hear that? That's crazy. Yeah, all right, so. We will be migrating over to a different platform at some point. We are getting more notorious as every week passes. More people are downloading this show than we had originally anticipated. This is all good for us, but the more we start to peel back the layers on what's happening here, the more chance, the bigger the chances are they dispose of us. Now, aside from just having the show disappear because of that, it's a rights issue. I mean, we're just expressing. Of course, I am promoting the use of cannabis. Of course, I am doing that at any level. So it's all I've ever been doing. So apparently, we haven't caught their ear yet. Maybe it's in the title, but basically, it's a wonderful substance to try. And given the chance that I had no other chances, I took this one, and now I get to sit here. So I'm not going to back off from cannabis ever. And I will say that the Greenway has brought me here today. All right, we're back. I just wanted to understand how we can try to put this together. So we need to find ways to, as you say, bring the community together. I was speaking with a couple of guys from BC last week, and they were telling me, Cam Noble and Alex the chemist, and they were telling me that there are some rifts out there that go back to the 80s. Families involved in whatever it was, and so the industry moves forward, and those two still aren't, hooked up. It's basically lone shooters and individual players in this thing, and that's why we have to watch out for LPs because they just swallow up another LP, and it happens all the time, and then pretty soon you're just going to have the weed company.
Yeah.
That'll be it. It'll just be one big Monsanto heaven.
Yeah, LPs scare me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was part of that first recall that was through Metrum.
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, basically one day I got a call, and by then I was already moved on to, I think I was with Tilray at the time, and an automated, a voice came over and said, some of the medication that you had has been recalled. If you have it still, please dispose of it. Thank you. And that was it. And I was like, what does that mean?
Dispose of it. What,
it's already, I already smoked it. You know what I mean? That was months ago.
Way later.
And the weird thing is, I'd called Metrum and found out it was the Girl Scout cookies, which turned out to be the same strain that I had called to complain about, because actually I didn't complain about it because it was the first batch that actually showed up on time and was the right weight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I didn't complain about that. I called and said, yeah, I got it, because I was on like a first name basis, had the guy's number, because they had messed up so many times with my order by that point that I'd called him and said, this Girl Scout cookies, it has a side effect. He said, what's that? I said, it's a really good decongestant.
Oh.
Because I thought that I was getting sick. I was getting a cold, and that it was bringing up the phlegm.
Right.
Apparently, it was the myclobutanol that was in the cannabis that they had put there that was causing me agitation and irritation in my throat and my chest, causing the mucus to be brought up.
Oh, my God. And this is from a government LP?
This was from Metrum.
Metrum, and they were a government licensed producer?
Yes,
and
I think since then they've been bought up. Like you say, that happens.
Yeah,
they
that
got
happens.
bought up.
And so you were a patient at the time?
Yes.
And you were getting this under the ACMPR or
under
MMAR?
the ACMPR, the third one,
the
I guess.
Third one, yeah. There were different waves of the MMAR and whatever it is.
Either way, the ACMPR took the... Oh, no, I was the MMPR, because they had the MMAR, the MMPR, and basically both of those sucked. So they took them and rolled them into the ACMPR and took the worst out of both of them and made them
use
this.
that instead. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? So this is back, when was this?
This was back, like 2011, 2012.
Okay, so this is eons ago
yeah,
in legality.
long enough ago, but yet there's still a class action lawsuit that I'm still waiting to find out about.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad there is. I mean, I hope they resolve it soon, but I'm glad it's not gone away as an issue. So explain that to folks. Like, that's where we were. So it's different now. It's easier now. But you had a prescription for this substance. So what was your prescription?
The prescription was 3 grams a day.
3 grams a day.
3 grams a day, because that's all the doctor would give at the time.
And how did that come to you? Mailed in a pouch, and how many would you get in one mailing?
Okay, so I don't remember about that time, but I will tell you the very last time I purchased from a licensed producer, it cost me $67 roughly for 5 grams delivered to my door with taxes and shipping.
Why? that's a huge ripoff.
Which is because I was trying to be legit. I have kids. I don't want them to come and take my kids away.
That's so much money even by now. Like, even if you got it, you can get
could go
$7
down
or
the
$8
road,
gram.
right? I could go down the road and buy a bag of 7 grams for $60.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's pretty top shelf pricing. $70 for 7 grams
with
now.
no myclobutanol.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, right.
So you're getting that. So you were only able to buy it from this one company, right? Was that the way it worked?
I could go and get it from my buddy down the street, but
no,
like
but
I said,
if
I was
you're
trying
playing
to
by
do
the
it
rules,
legally.
you're doing Johnny play by the rules. You had this one purveyor.
Well, see, here's the interesting thing. You can sign up with as many licensed producers as you want.
Okay.
So if you get 10 grams a day and you want to sign up 1 gram a day with 10 different licensed producers, you can do that if you can find the doctor to do that for you.
Oh, right.
Now, I had to go through, I don't even want to say their name because it's a horrible place and I don't want people looking them up and trying to use them because they're horrible.
Okay.
But anyways, they make you go with 1 licensed producer and you get a list of like 7 or 8 to choose from.
7 or 8 strains?
Licensed producers.
Oh, okay. Right.
So obviously they're getting kickbacks from the licensed producers because you can only choose from these 7 and you can only choose 1 at a time and you only get 3 grams a day and you have to pee in a cup every time you go.
Why? What would that do?
Because they bill OHIP, so it doesn't cost you anything.
Oh, so you have to show that you have
to show that you
cannabis in your
only
pee.
use cannabis.
Oh, I see.
And nothing else.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's highly invasive and restrictive, isn't it?
Right. So eventually I got frustrated with the LP system, with being, being tainted.
And once in a while, you get stuff, they tell you, oh, sorry, this batch is no good, right? Like they'd have a mites batch, and then you just have to wait a while.
Yeah. I found a clinic. I actually work there now.
Okay.
But we can connect doctors with patients. And, of course, there's a fee because it's hard to find doctors that'll do it without a fee right now.
Right.
But they'll give you your license to grow.
Yeah.
So you will have control over what goes into your body because you have control over what goes into the plant.
Right.
Yeah.
This sounds so outrageous to so many of the lawmakers that you would have that kind of latitude on your own medication, and it's just basic, normal. I mean, it's so sensible.
Yep.
It's incredible that they don't seem to get that that's the way it needs to go. So that was the extremely I heard about it a long time ago. Like even in the 90s, there were people who had these prescriptions in the 90s, and then they would have a bad batch at the one or two factories
Yes.
at the time,
Yeah.
and they would just send them a note saying, "Hey, listen, sorry, we had a problem at the plant."
Well,
and we expect to get back to you next month.
Well, see, Health Canada is supposed to be doing now since those recalls, a better, because before it was up to the licensed producer
Right.
to make sure that they were following guidelines. Now I think it's up to Health Canada to make sure that they're following the proper guidelines. Like,
Right.
I know I had a bad experience with a licensed producer, but I do realize that since that day, there have been more people that have gotten into the licensed producer game. So I'm hoping that as more licensed producers come onto the scene, that you're going to find more patient-driven companies. And what I mean by that is, okay, so people tell me there's no difference between medical marijuana
Right.
and recreational marijuana.
The actual plant itself is the same thing.
But I will tell you it's not. And I'll tell you why I feel this way. Is
Okay.
because a recreational plant is grown most likely by somebody on a large scale that doesn't really have the knowledge about growing it, and they're just in it for the money. Somebody who's growing medicinal marijuana cares about the plant and knows enough about the plant to know that you can't use Miracle-Gro, because
Right.
Miracle-Gro, the life that it's going to stay in the plant is longer than the plant's life itself. So you
Yeah.
can't get rid of the chemical.
I don't even put that in my tomatoes. You know.
That's totally fine. Apparently, Miracle-Gro, if you eat the plants that are grown through Miracle-Gro, it goes through a completely different system.
Huh.
So you're able to ingest it through your stomach, but if you inhale it, it's completely different. So
Oh, I
that's
see.
why there's special nutrients out there for
Okay. Right.
cannabis. But if people are not educated, they're going to grow the worst possible product.
Right.
So that's why I say you don't have such a great. That's where, to me, the difference is where it's grown.
Right. Well, I said, I don't know if I said this on the show last week or if I was talking to someone else, but at the risk of repeating myself, a lot of the people that have been on this show, myself being on this show, and coming off of being a guest on Mike Richards' show last year. So Mike had a cancer, and he turned it around and was like able to go ahead anyway with his life in dealing with the cancer. That's what I've done. And so many other people, they get this bad thing happens to them. You're just living your life. You don't want this stuff to happen. But like some of the guests we've had on the show, like Vera Toomey in Ireland and some of the real like staunch advocates, they had terrible things happen to them. I mean, her child had this horrible disease and then was having these ridiculous amount of seizures daily. Then they find out cannabis works, and the government is completely against it at every turn. And it's the only thing bringing this kid any kind of salvation or peace and quiet and, just having a normal life kind of thing. And they've got this series of laws against it, right? So it turns people from what they are. And not everybody, I guess, but it's amazing how you just get called to arms.
Yeah.
Like this disease literally calls you to arms, or you just, roll up in a ball and die, which is, I don't know a lot of people that do that. Most people fight, when you're in a corner. And then they develop these companies that have something to do with their knowledge and their fight. Like the guys last week that were here, Cam Noble, his dad got prostate cancer. He was on his way to becoming a lawyer. Now he's got this extract company because he went straight to fight his dad's cancer. And so
Good for him.
the point I'm saying is when you lead from the altruistic, if it's such a hard word to find and get your hood around, in these sort of cynical times, but when you're coming from the place of, I want to fix this, I'm trying to help you, I want to, you get a whole different product as that thing plays out down the line than if you're just selling $20 widgets and you made a lot of money that summer.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to get that out of the cannabis medicine business for sure. Like, it needs to come from a compassionate place.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough of that happens with pharmaceuticals or most things. Most things in the society are not for that. But so many of us are doing that. You're just trying to help somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's a better shape of society if all of the byproducts are coming from people that are trying to, you know, meet goals of love and altruism rather than just straight up, you know, shark-filled capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
You will make money at some point.
Yeah.
But the lead in needs to come from the heart, not the wallet.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's been something that has been made clear to me by so many of these. They're warriors. I mean, Vera's a warrior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jenny Hallam in Australia, talking to some guys from marijuana.com down there from Australia at the show, and they're just incredible, telling me what the laws and restrictions are in Australia. My goodness, we got to get those guys on the show. Are you familiar with a lot of the different, do you keep up with all of the different legal sort of entrapments around the world and at least North America, or at least the provinces, or
now
too busy?
This might be showing my age a little bit, but I just recently started paying attention to what was going on in like the with like legalization. I think it was about 2012, 2013 when I actually, my eyes were open, so to speak. And I started paying attention to, it was around the same time that the government was trying to tell the legal growers at that time that they had to destroy their cannabis come April 1st and wrap it in kitty litter and throw it in the garbage because they weren't allowed to produce their own medication anymore.
That's ridiculous.
It was about that time that I went, okay, that doesn't sound right. What's going on?
Yeah. Tell us about that again. I vaguely remember that, but that's what they literally did. This is the same people that have come up with the new laws.
Marcel, my co-host on the show,
right. We're going to get him on shortly.
Yes. He, I'm sure he was part of the first act. I think it was the MMAR, but they had to take the government to court, to Supreme Court to say, you know, this is our right, that we should be able to grow this as a plant. It's our medication. We've been allowed to do so for, you know, this long. And that was about the same time that the licensed producers had started really amping up the ability to have the medication for people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's I don't know. Like, here's what really rocks me is that when you think of these laws and these rules, and you understand, this is crazy. Like, we sit here and complain about them when they first come out. That's ridiculous. Who would ever? And then you have to realize that this is all coming from the minds of people who are so very concerned that we might addle our minds by using cannabis. And they come up with these series of ridiculously draconian, repressive. I mean, it doesn't even work. Right? I mean, it's not even going to work. Never mind how mean it is. It's not even going to legitimately fly when they...
What about the fact that they're going to sell out within the first 3 days?
Oh, is that the case?
I can almost guarantee you that they're not going to have enough cannabis to stock their stores, which is why once it's passed...
Why is it? Because of the legal growers aren't going to be able to provide it all? That's where that is?
Well, how many legal growers have they allowed? We don't even know if they're actually allowing micro growers. And are they going to be using the medical license producers like Tweed and Tilray? Is that then going to be taking away medication from the medical patients? Are they still going to have their medication? Like, there's so many questions that are going to fall come legalization that...
What do? We need to capitalize on the failure of anything of this nature. We need to really just go, see, you don't know what you're talking about. This didn't work.
Well, see, I talk cannabis all day, every day. It's what I do with part of my job working at the hydroponics store. I love talking about the laws because a lot of people are not educated about the laws that are coming out. I like to teach people on how to make their own edibles, their own butters, their own oils, because as you said before, we have a 1-year delay while the government figures things out. I put my fingers in like the air quotations out.
Those are air quotes, yeah, because they're not really going to figure things out at all.
No. So I think people like me are going to be very busy over the next year trying to teach as many people as I can to save their money, how to grow their own medication or cannabis at home, how to juice it, how to make your own oils and tinctures and.
Right. Well, on that note, here's what Bitcoin is doing.
Perhaps less so with cannabis. The cannabinoid field is exploding, and I'm going to touch on genomics as well. The genomics field has been going through exponential growth curves, and these things all intersect. When they intersect, there's really, really interesting opportunities. So, how many people here know the 4 letters of DNA, just to start? Anyone know? All right, we got a biologist. That's good, too. What GATC are the 4 letters? For those who don't know, A in that equation is actually something known as adenosine. And adenosine is the molecule in ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so this is an energy source that's required to write the code of life, and it's physically written right into the code of life. All right, so there's a lot we can learn from proof of work and from blockchain technologies and how to move information throughout time, because biology is teaching us about this. We've got 50,000 cells that all have to run the same 6 billion code set, and somehow they've figured out how to do this and manage mutations. Now, mutations occur, and when they occur dramatically, they speciate things, and when they speciate things, you get new forks, if you will. But oftentimes you get mutations that create cancer. And these mutations are your immune system attacks, and it's kind of sounds familiar to what's going on in the Bitcoin space right now. Small changes, people fight heavily over. Large ones, they don't. We see this in biology as well. So where am I going with this? In order to get a sense of where I'm going with this, I'm going to give you a little bit of my history, because I think that'll put you on the right trajectory as to what we're doing here in this case. So I grew up in a family of biotech entrepreneurs. My breakfast morning meetings would be with my parents would be about liquid scintillation counters and bioluminescence and finance, and so I kind of got into this groove almost genetically, and then as that began to mature, I decided not to go to medical school with my pre-med degree at Emory, and decided to jump into the biotech space and see what opportunities were there. So I got very fortunate and lucky and got a job on the Human Genome Project at MIT, and started working with Eric Lander to manage the scale-up of the Human Genome Project. So this was back in around 95 and 96, and shortly into this, the 2 guys that hired me quit and left me with the reins, and I was 24 and wholly unqualified to be running any research and development team on this project. But fortunately, when you're in the right time in the right place, the best and most important thing is to know it. And I started working weekends and nights to keep this thing going, and look to get a PhD. I applied for a PhD and then deferred, mainly because halfway through this, a private company stepped forward and claimed they were going to sequence the Human Genome Project for tenfold less than the government. And the government should go fork off and sequence the mouse genome. Naturally, every scientist with no ego decided to do exactly not that. They decided to fight, and they decided to have a thorough race with this private company, because the private company had a monopoly in actually making the DNA sequencers that they were going to use.
And he goes on. It's a fascinating speech, but by the time he gets to the end of it, you realize that the cannabis industry is still pretty much a cash business. This has got a lot of reason for the control on the businesses, that it's a cash-only kind of situation. And as it spreads out into, soon there'll be credit card payments for things, etc., as it goes legal, that the blockchain and cryptocurrency people are deeply diving into working out their economy as well, with and involving cannabis. So this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar operation by the time they take the genie out of the bottle. And I think this also has lots to do with their hesitation. They're kind of afraid and scared. People on our side, I will say, have very creative minds. We have shatterizers. We have all kinds of inventions. I think when I first started to get into this, which was after yourself, I started up I bought my first vaporizer. I had a Volcano a long time ago, but I bought my first vaporizer handheld in 2014, and there were about 50 of them out there. I don't even know how many are out there now, and very inventive folks, but cryptocurrency will offer a great solution to these problems, and many cannabis businesses are beginning to adopt cryptocurrency as a way of payment and currency out of necessity, because it can run unchecked as well. So it's sort of a good marriage between what the older folks or whoever it is that's setting policies telling us how it's going to go, and they really aren't going to be able to stop it. So as much as we sit here and complain about things, I just kind of wanted to reset my mind, because we are going to continue purchasing it the way and where we've been purchasing it. We are going to use it outside when we want to use it outside. We are going to boycott the Ontario Cannabis Store and any other major government outlet, and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because we're in the right. And I don't mean right wing by that. I mean correct. There may be some right wingers that are correct, and there are certainly some left wingers that are correct, and they share that this stuff should not be so held back and repressive, because everybody that can hear me right now is a person who can either personally benefit from this, or knows someone that can or needs to, or could have used it. I wish I had been able to introduce my mother to this substance back in 1996 when she lay dying, and unfortunately I didn't know anything about it. So we're all done waiting. We're all done letting the government play catch up. So on that note, you had another fantastic point you wanted to bring forward.
Oh, yeah. I was reading an article on, please excuse me if I don't say this right, but cannabinoid hyperemesis, I believe.
Hyperemesis, yeah.
Syndrome, yeah. Apparently it's a new thing that's just been brought out in the media.
Hyperemesis.
Yeah. They're saying it's from too much cannabinoids, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. Extended cannabinoid usage can cause vomiting, as well as the list goes on. It's
Vomiting
horrible.
from too
Nausea,
much
vomiting,
cannabis?
abdominal pain. Yeah. And it's funny because I came across another article within like 24 hours about the side effects of pesticide poisoning.
Oh, how did that go?
They're surprisingly very similar.
It's remarkably similar.
It really is. And
wow.
I mean, like I said, I started using cannabis when I was 15 years old, and I'm not going to give away my age because a woman never tells that sort of thing.
But you're out of your teens, though, right?
I'm definitely out of my teens now.
I'm not going to get in trouble for this.
Oh, well, thank you. You're very nice.
Okay.
But no, I'm definitely out of my teens.
All right.
I've been using cannabis for, we'll just say, more than half my life. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
So
you just found out about this cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
And I've used cannabis from... Okay, I've bought cannabis off a guy on a corner on the way home from the mall one day. Okay, I do not advise doing this. You should not purchase anything off somebody you do not know.
Oh, yeah.
However, I have never experienced anything like they're explaining in the cannabinoid hyperemesis.
Signs and symptoms, okay, the long and short-term effects, can you imagine? Are associated with behavioral effects leading to a wide variety of effects on the body's systems and physiologic states. The syndrome is a paradoxical syndrome characterized by persistent vomiting, as opposed to the better-known anti-emetic properties of cannabinoids. The better-known ones, yeah, the good stuff. Specifically, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome takes the pattern of cyclical nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain in the setting of chronic cannabinoid use. The abdominal pain tends to be mild and diffuse. There are 3 phases of the syndrome: prodromal, hyperemetic, and the recovery phase. Yeah, and so you're saying there's a lot of, this is the retching and the vomiting. I can never imagine ever doing this. I can tell you that. Retching can occur up to 5 times an hour. I mean, you don't have a cannabis problem here. You've got something that was on the cannabis, right? That's what you're saying.
I've got right here on my phone an article that talks about pesticide poisoning and acute pesticide poisoning and what the symptoms are. Here they are.
Yeah, here we go.
Excessive salivation, tearing of the eyes, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, difficulty breathing, abdominal pains.
Okay, so are you going to read the chemical sheet now? Because you're reading the same thing about the cannabis. Oh, that is the chemical sheet?
This is, yeah, no, this is...
I thought you were rereading
No, this is from healthhype.com, and it's 10 acute pesticide poisoning symptoms.
Wow. And
So
it's the same.
It's amazing how
it's
similar
amazing.
they are.
And how new this is.
Yes, yes.
How new this is. Now, I wonder what we can do to solve that problem. I wonder what we could do. I know what we could do. Instead of having all these cannabinoids available for us to use, I think maybe one big company that has access to the government and can help them understand some of the fairest rules. Somebody like Monsanto, maybe if we just gave them all the power to grow, they have a lot of labs and stuff, right? We should just let Monsanto grow all of the weed.
Sure.
And then tell everyone that if you don't have that kind of weed, they could put some kind of thing in it. So if a cop came by and scanned your weed stash and it doesn't register properly, then you've obviously got some contraband, and off to the station we go.
Well, that's kind of scary because once legalization comes, that's one of the things that people have to be concerned about is if they're caught with legal
non-sanctioned,
cannabis,
non-legalized, non-regimented.
From what I had been told by my boss, who is he's really knowledgeable with C45 and what's coming up, he had said that the majority of the C45 is about seizure of your property.
Wow.
Yeah, so I advise people, don't just watch the news and say, it's going to be legalized and yay, let's smoke a joint, because
heard it's going to be legal. That's nice.
Yeah, no, go to the government website and click on C45 and read the amendments that have gone through and see what's been changed and educate yourself and hopefully advocate and educate your fellow peers.
Well, we do have 40 proposed amendments.
Proposed amendments.
40 proposed amendments from the senator folks that want to change the existing, verbiage in there. And you would think that maybe some of them might be in our favor.
Yeah, Don Davies did a great job in the beginning in the NDP when they were trying to get it through. And he had a lot of good amendments that they kind of just went, meh, and didn't listen to.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that they did take the height restriction off the cannabis plants for the at-home grow, because it was something ridiculous.
That is crazy. But see, I think that kind of thing, though, that is how they really stick it to us. Because, first of all, it's it's like being in a contract negotiation. And you go, look, I'll do it for $1 million, okay? Yeah. And they go, listen, we're not going to give you $1 million. And then you take $200,000 and that's all you were going to get. Yeah. I don't think they could really expect that they were going to have the manpower to enforce that if everybody that has a grow op that's legal, they're going to make sure the thing's less than 6 feet. I mean, that's like saying, okay, you can have a bird in your house, but no flying around with the wings that are naturally occurring on the bird. Like, the plant's going to grow to the size the plant's going to grow.
See, my fear is they're going to say, well, we need a task force. We need a crew of people to ensure that people are abiding by this 45 different... I think it's 45, right? We're going from
laws,
8 or something like that to 45 different.
45, yeah.
It's ridiculous, and this is legalization.
Yeah, this is why a lot of people. So tell your friends, like if you don't spend a lot of time, conversing with your friends and roommates about it, get wise on this. Go to @GreenCrushPod, @GreenCrushPod. We have all of our shows there. This is our 43rd show or what have you. I think it's our 43rd show.
You are correct.
Then there are several other really good shows out there, and it doesn't take long to realize that this substance is a food. Imagine if for the last 80 years, vitamin C was illegal. I mean, what kind of health state would we be in right now? Hey, she's got oranges. Buster, you're going down, bitch. Like she's got an orange tree in her backyard, like that would be the same kind of thing.
And yet they wonder why cancer rates just keep climbing.
Yeah, it's pinned down from 1947. It's just ridiculous. I understand that a lot of people don't want it to be legal, but it's a rights issue. You don't have to use it either. I mean, we have situations that in the Supreme Court of Canada, time and time again, have taken governmental arrests and restrictions and hash them out in the legal system, and once again comes down on the favor of the patient. I don't know how many more times we have to try to buck that. But we have to grow gardens, and we just have to do what we're going to do. I'm here for the outlaw aspect of it because, like I say, when the laws are unjust, to break the law, as Paul Paul would say from England. Paul, what's his last name again? Paul Flynn. He's in the MP party. He's in the MP of Jeremy Corbyn's, and he was up there breaking the law, smoking weed on the on the steps of Parliament, or encouraging people to do this. That is what we're going to have to do. We have existing problems with this substance, and now they're going to just complicate things further. So I kind of wanted to be done the show after a year. I kind of thought, maybe I would do 6 or 10 of these and sort of get it all out in the open. And then as the 5th or so episode came by, I thought, we need to do more. Yeah. Well, I'll just do it until it finally becomes legalized, and then I'll go away. But now I think we're in for a long haul, because I feel like I'm going to be a commentator on, and perhaps an unwilling participant in, legal adventures. Are you concerned about getting arrested at all? What's going to happen to you if you're caught with
here's
cannabis in your system? Therefore, you're impaired.
See, this is what's scary as a medical patient.
Yeah.
For one,
exactly.
I'm prescribed 10 grams a day. So on 10 grams a day, at any given time, I can guarantee you that if they were to do that little swabby thing or a blood
take it
test,
off your forehead,
right, that I'm going to test positive for cannabis. But yet I'm 100%. I can walk a straight line. I can talk to you completely normal. But yet I'll still get in trouble.
Yeah.
However, also as a medical patient, my medical documentation allows me to consume my medication, so I can smoke a joint anywhere that anybody else is allowed to have a cigarette.
Right. That's where you're allowed to do as a medical patient.
As a medical patient. So my fear is that once it becomes legalized, that a lot of people like me are going to be questioned and harassed by law enforcement because they're just doing their job, trying to ensure that people are following the law that says you cannot consume in a public space.
And so then what about the people who are always only in their minds taking it recreationally? Like they're not allowed to smoke it anywhere outside?
Not at all. There's going to be, from what I understand, no vape sites like the Hot Box. I know that they were talking about that they were worried that they were going to be shut down, and they've been there like 20 years or something. Yeah, it's crazy to think that, the neighbors didn't even realize they were there because there was never any friggin' problems.
Right. Yeah, it's not like some, up north drunken bar where there's fights every night, right? It's a different scene.
My nanny, she always used to say that she lived up in like Burnt River, and she said you can tell when the people would come and they'd drink because the kids that would drink, they were loud. They would leave garbage the next day.
Yeah.
She said when the smokers would come, you might see the odd lighter flick in the bush, and she said nothing.
Rest of the time,
no garbage, nothing.
But that is the scary thing, is that scary as in, okay, here we go. I'd be more concerned about the legal system, because there are some good lawyers out there, and someone's going to get dipped in the test pond.
Yeah.
Right? Someone is going to get arrested, and the rest of us are going to go, hey, you can't do that to that guy, because we all do that, and it's unenforceable.
Well, I'm afraid that there's going to be too many people that are, Johnny Do-Good, that are just going to take the fine and pay it. They're not going to be people like me or you that are going to say, no, just because I test positive for cannabis does not mean that I'm impaired.
Well, this is why I don't like people.
I know where you're going with this.
Not everybody. It's not that I don't like everybody. I just... I had to clear my throat to kill my mic on that one. It's not that I don't like everybody. I just hate this whole sheep mindset. And then when you point it out, you're calling us a sheep. But the people that are going to just take this shit lying down are sheep. The people who can't wait for the liquor store to open up their weed branch at the OCS so they can, I want to go in there and see what it's like, and how, like you say, is it the old ways of the alcohol release, with the forms and everything. I just want to see how gulag it is and take a look at it. But I'm not going to give them any of my dollars.
Well, see, I'll be standing out front trying to educate people.
Yeah, me too.
Because I don't think they're aware of what the laws are.
No, so you're saying that, and let's talk to those people now specifically. So those people that are excited about legalization means it's going to be legal, and they don't really understand what's going on. So they're going to be able to go into one of these places.
Sure. Let's say they're charging $10 a gram.
Let's say they're charging 11 because it's going to be tethered into the next provincial budget. As soon as this thing comes out, it'll be $10 a gram, and as soon as whoever the hell it is next time, they're going to go, and we're going to raise the tax on this as well. So now it's $11 a gram. And then, of course, they're going to be even more angry at the places where you can get it for $3 or $4 a gram.
Well, yeah, because they're adding the 10% excise tax.
Yeah, sure. It's not going to work. It's
and
not
then
sustainable.
the HST.
Right. So let's say it's
So-
$11 a gram. Well, let's say 10 if it's easier math, whatever you want to do. So you're going to go in there, and there's going to be different kinds, right? There'll be one that's $12 a gram. There'll be one that's $9 a gram. But it's all going to be $10 a gram kind of thing. So you're going to go in there, and there'll be different, maybe, this is Blue Dream. This is, Acapulco sort of fool's gold. We didn't want to give you the real deal on that one. This is, and they're going to breed down these things. That's how anybody is going to be able, anybody, right? As long as you're old enough.
Yep.
You just go in there and you buy that. Then you have to take it home in this boring little package and keep it hidden from everyone and make sure there's no children around, unless you have kids at home because they live there because you're a parent. And then, well, we didn't think that part of the plan through. But you have to control yourself enough to smoke it at home or partake of it at home or in the backyard.
Well, what if you live in an apartment building?
Well, this is what I mean. You've got someone
you
living
don't
in a
ha-
home
you don't
and
have
someone
the
who has a
space.
backyard, and that guy gets, that's not enough, but he gets both of those regions, or she gets both of those regions. And if your neighbor is on the other side of the fence and doesn't like the smell of weed, too bad for them. Is that how it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my understanding, that's.
But if you're living in an apartment building and your landlord says you're not allowed to smoke that in here, then,
they're trying to
then
make
what?
laws to adjust the condo corporations and, to be able to say, you can't grow a plant in your apartment.
Right.
But yet, are they going to ban tomato plants?
Are there medical people? Do medical people at all live in apartments? Does that ever happen? Do
Yeah.
people?
Yeah,
It kind of happens everywhere, right?
this is part of the failed model of the licensed producer as well.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who's homeless,
Right.
right?
What's he
And
supposed to do?
well, where are they? Like, they don't even have an address to mail their medication to.
Right.
So how do they get their medication?
All right. Well, we don't need to worry about that. We just need to make sure that Bill Blair's making enough money on the LPs he's already invested into.
Yeah. Let's. I forgot about Mr. Blair. How dare I?
Well, it's important that Bill is well off. I mean, his title is ridiculous. If you've seen his photograph, he's some kind of a health adjunct minister. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Well, listen, we were gonna have Al Rapp on today. He's on 420, right? With
We
you
were supposed to have Al, Rapp, and Marcel.
and Marcel, and they're not going to be able to come on. Something happened.
Oh no, sorry guys.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
It must be me. I talk too much.
No, they didn't say that. They just said they just couldn't make it for time or something. So I'm not exactly sure.
Well, Marcel's on the East Coast, so he's a little ahead of time for us.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. We're moving into my plans to find out where we can find you and how we can listen to your show and what else you're going to be working on shortly. I mean, aside from sitting on tenterhooks waiting for this law to drop.
Well, let's see. You can find the 420 Radio Show at 420radio.ca.
420radio.ca, folks.
Yeah. You can also find us at lifestyleradio.net.
All right.
And let's see, myself personally, I love teaching people how to grow. I like, if anybody needs any help finding a doctor that will give you the approval to grow, I can help hook people up with that as well.
Now, why does that cost $200 sometimes and nothing another time? What's going on with that?
So it depends. It depends on the doctor. And I like to tell people, if you know of a doctor that is doing this for little to no cost, please send them my information. We would like to work out a deal because we have a lot of patients that are very low income that can't afford, to pay top dollar. I have heard of some places charging in the thousands of dollars.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, this is going back like a year or so, because there wasn't that many doctors that were signing, especially for a grow license.
Right.
But yeah, we have the clinic that we do that, and I guarantee you it's not thousands of dollars. It depends on how much that you get prescribed a day.
Right.
But I think right now the lowest that we found is up to 15 grams a day you can get for 300 plus tax.
300 plus tax.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just to give people a rough idea, 10 grams a day will get you 49 indoor plants.
Okay.
So, like if you like to make oils and edibles, you'll need like a lot more plants, obviously.
Right.
But the growing system is a little different right now. I'm not sure how it was before, but if you don't have the space, like say you live in an apartment building, you can designate somebody else to grow for you.
Right.
So that way they can grow, but they have to have like a criminal record check.
Right.
And
you're not going to be able to go to their place to get it, or they will, or
well,
you might get busted on the way home.
You can, but yeah, don't consume it while you're there because you don't want to reek like it. No,
Can't even test it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We also do cannabis testing where I work as well. Except it's not. Unfortunately, the government won't allow anybody to test for the chemical compounds.
No.
In just THC, CBD, CBN, CBG, and all that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
bizarre.
The terpenes. You can get that stuff, but.
You don't want to make sure the stuff is good enough and quality laden. There's a lot of things that we have to straighten out here, folks. And I just want to tell you, before we get going, England is really not getting off the pot on this whole cannabis thing. Yeah, pun intended or not, it's up to you. The Independent says that legalizing cannabis could help fund the NHS, that's the National Health Service, and earn the UK $3.5 billion a year, study claims. Health Poverty Action says legalization is not only profitable, but safer. Legalizing cannabis could earn up to $3.5 billion a year, it says. Health Poverty Action, an international development organization, we should ask them about Canada, claims that legalizing that Class B drug would have many benefits, including extra revenue to fund the NHS. And the people want it. That's the thing, is that the people do want it, and I don't understand why they don't seem to figure that out. So we need to understand these hot button issues. You need to go to your government representative and say, listen, pal, the data is in. You need to stop with the repression of information. Stop telling me what you think is going on and what you might believe. And I'm sick and tired of the politicians go, well, we believe that this might happen, and then this is what you're going to vote for. I don't want to care about what you believe is going to happen. I'm looking at the scientific data, and I'm always looking at the fact that I sit here well past my expiry date, having a good time, and that is what needs to happen. That is what needs to happen. You need to access this medicine. It is available for you. It can work. And I'd like to thank my guest, Marijane Baker, for explaining her side of the story, why she had a problem with IBS and how she got rid of it. Not with pharmaceuticals, with the substance that's making this show sitting pretty on the extinction list. Because I might be talking about why this stuff is good stuff, but it is good stuff. And I want you to try it, especially if you feel like you haven't got any other opportunity. My name is Alan Park. This has been Green Crush. We will be back. Green Crush Conspiracy Queries is brought to you by Eggplant Digital Media, some of Canada's finest digital media. Exciting shows. We've got new ones all the time. Check out Your Hood's a Joke. It's pretty fucking funny. And Danish Anwar is a pretty fantastic host. Light them up. Tell them you're going to do it the way you want to do it.
Cannabis Broadcasting Group here at cbgtv.com.